Crescent, Jen here. I'm going to be doing the painting with you today, and I thought I would give you a few tips before we start. There's a few different types of brushes you can use. You can use if you're doing watercolor, acrylic, or oils, and the brushes are different. Acrylics and oils generally are similar brushes, and they're quite long. So they're designed so that you can paint at a distance. Because that's the way you view paintings. But the watercolors are usually a lot shorter. You can see they're quite a bit smaller type brushes, and I use them all the time for a lot more detailed work, because I prefer to do more detail work with watercolors. But the brushes are a lot shorter because you need to be closer to manipulate the paint. Another tip I have with the canvases, if you find that they're really bouncy, you can just use a water spray bottle and just to spritz the back. And then as it dries, it will firm up the canvas and it will make it really firm. But you don't want to do it too much, because it is actually possible to tear the canvas right off if you do too much. The most important part with painting, of course, is to have fun. It's good to have a good idea of where you're going with the painting before you start. Or if you're following along with an instructor, you need to trust that they have a good plan, because the painting I'm going to be teaching you, I'm not going to tell you up front, because I want to do it sort of like a trust experiment and see if you guys can handle just trusting me to have the plan. One other tip I would have for you is that when you're finished your paintings, this is not the image that we're going to be doing, but when you're finished, if you're not going to be framing it, but you'd like to hang it in your house and you'd like it to look really nice and more finished, is just to paint the edges black, and then it looks more like a plaque hanging on your wall, so then you don't have to frame it, and you can even just hang it on a pin if you want to do that. So thanks for painting, thanks for trusting me, and enjoy the painting. Hello, Crescent Heights. Okay, we are ready to carry on and do our painting now. The first thing you're going to make sure you've got is your canvas, your brush, and your palette knife, pencil, your paints, and you'll be given a couple little sponges as well, which we'll use later on. You'll need water, maybe paper towel, and a plate or a piece of foil for putting some extra paints on later. I'm not going to show you what this painting looks like ahead of time. You're just going to have to trust me and just go with it, and you're going to have a lot of fun. If that really freaks you out, you can message me and I'll send you a finished photo ahead of time. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is to sketch on your canvas. We're not going to do a complicated sketch, we're just going to do a fun one. So you want to divide it into about thirds and just do a line all the way across. Hopefully you can see that with on the camera here. And then going up the middle third or so, we're going to do a couple of trees. And you're just going to do a couple of lines going straight up and down. And we're going to do 5 branches coming out on V's. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the bit sticking out the top, and we're going to do that both sides. And this is just to place our colors. 3, 4, 5. Okay, next we're going to start doing our sky. So what you're going to do is get your white paint, and you're going to do 4 dabs at the top and the bottom, and then we're going to blend those in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for this part, you'll be using your brush. If you dip it in the water, and then just to make it damp, then you wring it out using your fingers like this, just to pull it out so that it doesn't get too drippy, because we don't want it really drippy. So then you will just spread it all over the top section. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You're just spreading the paint around. most important thing with painting is that you gotta have loads of fun. So just relax and just enjoy the process. And try not to drop it in your lap or anything, because that happens more often than not as well. And I'm gonna add just a tiny little bit of light blue in the corner, and we will blend that in also into the white. And you want it nice and smooth, because that will add more contrast to what we're gonna do later. And you can use a bit of that blue just down in the bottom here also. Just pull it down, make sure you get all the way into the corners. There we go. That's good. If you find it's not spreading very well, you can just add a little bit of water. Acrylics just thin really nicely with that. Then rinse your brush and set your brush aside. The next part's gonna take, we're gonna have to do it all at once. So if you need to pause here and go get something, that's good, because once we put the paint down, you're gonna be busy for a few minutes. So if you wanna pause it, then we'll go into the next step, and then we'll carry on. So next up, you want orange, and you're gonna do 2 dots of orange. You're gonna do 6 of yellow. So just go up your branches. Then we're gonna do 2 of green. And up the other tree, we're gonna do it in shades of blue. So with the first of all, you're gonna do a violet on the bottom one. And then you're gonna do 4 drops of dark blue. 1 on this side and 3 on this side. And then light blue on the others. Perfect. Now, you're gonna move to your palette knife, and you're just gonna smear it around. You don't wanna blend all of the colors together. You just want to cover and move them around. They will get mixed up a little bit, but you don't want to do all of it. And it doesn't have to be even, because that will sort itself out in a little while also. And just wipe off the knife a bit before you go into the green, or it turns kind of muddy. It's great if it goes into the yellow, but if you get too much orange mixed in, then it kind of goes, yeah, muddy. All right, and then just wipe it off again before you go into the blues and the purples. And you're mostly just mixing straight on the canvas. And you want to go right the way down to this line at the bottom here. It doesn't matter if you go a little bit past it, but you want to try and stop at about the line. And you can even pull some of the blue across the bottom down there. Then you want to add a little bit of white, and if you put it onto your plate, then you can just scoop some with your knife without making too much other mess. And you just want to do a few dollops of it here and there on top of the other colors, mostly just on the top half of this. And you want to make sure before, like, you want to try and keep the blue section separate from the others. So just wipe off your knife before you do the other side, and you want to add some more white there too. Just to put a few more dollops of white up in this section, and a little bit in the green. Okay, perfect. Now, doesn't that look beautiful? I feel like third grade artists already. Okay, you want to grab one of your sponges, and I'd like you to use one end for doing the yellow and orange, and then switch to a different end for doing the green, and then the other part of the sponge for doing the blue, so we don't mix the colors too much. And I want you to just start to dab them and work in small little areas at a time so that you don't mix too much of the colors together. And you can draw some up and you can bring some down. You don't want a solid color, you want to just have some variations and just dab away. And then, so switch the sponge for the next part. So your green stays green. You can go into the yellow a bit, is fine too. All right. And then you want to switch to your other sponge to do the blue. And you want to do all of this while it's still wet. And you can turn the sponge around if you think you're getting too many of like the same shape, because sometimes sponges, they're so square that it can go kind of weird. And then you can draw some of the darker stuff up. Okay? When you're happy with where that's going, you can sort of make some different shapes with it. When you're happy with that, then the next step, we're going to move on to the palette knife, and we're going to get some darker colors. So make sure your palette knife is nice and clean, and it doesn't matter at this point if it dries a little bit while we're doing this. And you'd want to get some purple and some green and let's just use the purple again for the other trees. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is just have a couple little dollops, and you want to load your palette knife just to sort of grab some and bead it on the edge. I kind of got it all the way up, but there's a bead on the edge there, and we're going to just use the edge to add in some trunks, and these are going to be our trees. So grab as much as you need along the edge, just to, and you can just do them at random intervals. Some closer together, some far apart, some go up taller, and you got to add some branches here and there going out from the trunks. And you're not going to see them all joined up either. Sometimes you can, in trees, you can see the trunks, and sometimes you can't. So you just want to sort of dab it on there, making some lines. And I think that the purple would look nice up here against these ones also. So try to get it fairly straight and not too globby. And you can use the wide end of your palette knife, or you can go and you can use a shorter end too. Or if you're not using a palette knife, you can always just use a smaller skinny brush. Will work just the same. And trees are never evenly spaced, so you always want to try and spread them out and make them as random as you can for the branches and the trunks. And we'll do some here for the green ones also. And if you think a different color would look better, go right ahead and add whichever color you think would look perfect. And if you want to change out the color of your trees, one of the other bonuses to doing acrylic is that if you make a mistake or you don't like something, you can just wait till it dries and then just paint right over top of it and change it up. And you can go back and add highlights. You can make it as complicated as you want. Okay, there our branches are done. Now we're going to, you want to make sure your palette knife is clean if you dip it in the water, and then you can just wipe it off on a paper towel. And then you want to grab some more, load it with white, and just go up one side of the trees, just here and there, not all of them, but you can drag it a little bit, you can dab it, but try and do it all on the same side of each branch, because that's the way that the lighting would go. And you want to do that with all of the branches. And reload as often as you need to. And most likely you'll see a lot more of the highlights at the bottom than you would at the top. Then we're going to move on to our brushes. So on your palette, before we start that, we want to put a dollop of the same colors we were using at the top. So like the orange and yellow, the green, the blues. Even if you just use the darker blue, that's great. And this is the really fun part. So your brush is probably still damp from the last time that you've used it. But if it's dried out, just dip it again and then use your fingers to draw out the extra water. And then you want to load your brush with the blue. We'll start over here. And you want to start at your horizon line here and just pull down. And where this is shorter, you want this to be shorter. And where this is taller, this can go taller this way too. And you just want to pull that down till you match where the colors go. And then you want to switch to your green, so you can quickly rinse your brush. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's fine. You want to go to your green and you want to pull this down here. like that. And then again, you want to rinse a little bit. And move on to your yellow and orange. And you can double load the brush if you want, which means just putting like one in color on one corner and the other color on the other end of the brush. And again, starting at that horizon line, you want to pull it down. Yeah, I want more yellow. Orange is a very powerful color. And you want to pull it down, and you just want downward strokes. Ah, still very orange. Alright, so that part is good. And then the next part that we're going to do is we're going to go, let's see. We're going to go back to the palette knife, and you're going to want your white paint, and you're going to need quite a bit of it this time. Not too much, but a bigger dollop than for what you used up there. And you're going to want to bead it again. And you're going to start just along the horizon line, in the darker place right there, and try and go through the middle of the darker place, and just to put your horizon line back in. And then you can start just bringing down some of the other colors, or going over top of the other colors, sorry. And maybe if we stick with one color at a time in case we get that color on the knife. And you can sort of go, you still want to use the bead, but you can kind of pull it a little bit as well as dabbing it. And you want to do less as you come forwards, like towards the bottom. And you want to clean off your palette knife a little bit, and then kind of grab some more white and go on to the next color. And this is adding the ripples to the water. Oh, this is so pretty. There we go. And you're done. Congratulations, you painted a whole scenery. I hope you enjoyed painting. Okay, bye.